Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our live stream of Creature Lab, a game where you can be the modern Frankenstein and create various devious concoctions, animate the dead as your slaves send them out into the city to gather resources that you will need to create the ultimate mutagen.
Yep. Hi, I'm Lucas, and I'm the head of the Image Power Studio. And Piotrek, our evil mastermind behind the game, he's not only our VP, but he's also a producer and designer of the game. So we're going to show you Creature Lab today, and it's a completely fresh build. If you played the demo back in February, you will definitely notice tons of new stuff here. Well, basically, I will play the role of the questionnaire, and Piotrek will be the one answering questions. So, of course, if you guys have any questions, you can type them on our chat.
Exactly. So, let us begin. We're going to start the experiment. And at first, you obviously have a few difficulty settings to choose from. I'm just going to choose anything and start loading just so that we can get rid of the loading screen, because it will take a moment for the game to load. There are 3 difficulty settings, and they're quite a bit different in terms of how difficult they are. So if you're not sure what to pick, go ahead and go for the medium difficulty once the game comes out, because the game can be really unforgiving on hardcore, and it's extremely easy on easy. So that's the intention. It's basically letting you tailor your gameplay style to what you feel. So the first thing you're going to see on the screen is the option to skip or continue the tutorial. We are going to play with the tutorial because we want to show you realistic first hands-on experience if you were to buy the game and play it. Like I said, a few UI things are still being ironed out. For instance, there will be an area here with your current mission summarized. We're going to improve the readability of this text and not have it centered, because it's more annoying to read than if it's properly placed. But yeah, for the most part, this is what you can see.
So what is exactly the main goal of the tutorial? You need to create a monster or mutagens?
So essentially, the game, like I mentioned at the start, lets you be Dr. Frankenstein in a way, the modern Frankenstein. And the thing is, the Frankenstein you play as, the mad scientist, isn't really all that popular. For some reason, people don't see monsters running around the city as something particularly great. I can't imagine why. Monsters are awesome. Nevertheless, the player wants the fame of being the renowned, incredible scientist that he is, because you can animate the dead, and this is no easy feat, mind you. So in order to achieve that, we are creating the ultimate mutagen. And with the ultimate mutagen, we are going to brainwash the entire city and make them worship us as the geniuses we really are.
But before we do that, so what is exactly the whole place here, the whole location? This is our lab, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the lab where we do all our completely ethical and absolutely right experimentation, and all the science that is happening. Everything is happening in this laboratory. So to give you a little bit of a glimpse, here we have our office section, which is mostly a front to nosy government spies. We've got our storage room, where there's a bunch of things to show you in just a moment. In fact,
Was there blood there? Yeah.
I mean, there is a morgue there, so maybe, we spilled something. It's not a big deal. There's no need to worry about hygiene too much when you're trying to animate the dead, after all. I mean, you can't really make it any worse for them, can you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so really, we are a genius that should be appreciated. And now the tutorial is going to guide us through one of the essential processes in the game, and that is in creating mutagens. So the idea is that, well, in order to revive the dead, you need to create a brilliant concoction that will actually let you revive the dead and make them your slaves, as they should be, as everybody should be, really, because it's only natural that great leaders are leaders. I mean, it's kind of in the name, isn't it? So
right now you're mixing 2 different mixtures, right?
yeah, these are called elixirs. Elixirs are
Elixirs, yeah.
middle of the road when it comes to complexity. We're going to delve deeper into the complexity in a moment when we actually show you the nitty-gritty. But for now, let's just imagine this as the second step in our creation process. So now we're going to mix them, and with the magic of the tutorial, it's going to work great because it has to, and it's going to create a mutagen. And that is really what we are aiming for. So over here you can see this mixture is considered more sparkly. It's shining, it's even glowing and blinking a little bit. And there's a reason for that. It's basically, it really lets you know that this actually is a mutagen. You can see that there's something off about it, can't you? So it was actually going to let us create our creatures. So before we do that, it's always a good idea to confirm that you have what you actually wanted. So I'm going to test the mixture under the microscope.
Just let me stop you for a moment, because one thing that many people noticed and were curious about when we attended PAX a few months ago was the overall UI and menu style. So was it the, well, I know it was, but can you tell us more about the retro approach to the menu and UI?
Yeah. So essentially, the entire idea of a mad scientist who gets to create different creatures, potions, and fight against the military, it's very retro sci-fi even in its concept, really. I mean, it sounds like something out of the 80s, honestly, or maybe 90s.
Yeah, because there's an obvious 80s vibe here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we decided to just go double down on it and just make all the UI, all the aesthetic choices to be this kind of slightly awkward science fiction style where everything is as people imagine it would look modern back in the day. Now obviously we went in a completely different direction, but hey, all this greenery is what we want. So right now I'm analyzing a substance to try to see if this is a mutagen, and I was able to discover that indeed it is. Basically mutagens, they have to contain certain specific molecules. We're going to talk a bit more about that in the future, but the microscope lets us discover if it is a mutagen or something else. That's always the important information. And right now we see the confirmation that it is. We see what was the composition of this particular substance, and the coolest part of all, we can actually go ahead and name it. How do you want to name it?
Just Madman's Mixture or Madman's Elixir.
There's a character limit of 20 characters.
Okay, it's just a Madman.
How about Mad Mixture?
Mad Mixture, okay.
All right. Let's go with Mad Mixture.
Just one more question. So the composition here are the ingredients that you can later somehow grab during the other missions?
Exactly. So these are the things that we started the tutorial with, but over the course of the game you can grab more of these in order to create more mutagens. So here we had a little bit of a scientist log. That was a little bit of a preview for the actual story missions. We're not going to show you the story missions in this build, aside from just an early sneak peek into some TV news, but we're not going to listen to them because in fact I'm going to make them maybe a little bit quieter because I want to avoid a situation where you cannot hear us because of the news. So don't be surprised that the audio is a little bit quiet at this point. And as we go along, the player gets to see more of those story missions, and these story missions serve as kind of like a showcase of really who the scientist really is, what is his background, his goals, his agenda, why does he have such a cool, wicked laboratory hidden somewhere in the city, and why is he out for blood, really. So that's the idea. As you progress with the story, you're going to see a little bit of extra detail popping out on around the screen. Sorry about this little beer back screen. Such as little things you can find, a bit of trivia, some more important than others. For instance,
yeah, I was about to ask about this one. So this is some kind of a helping hand here, or
yeah, you can find them around the lab. Such bits of information. It's really inspired by the information we got from PAX, where we realize that okay, tutorial is great and all, but somebody might finish the tutorial and forget some essential information. So here is like a quick guide, and there's more if you look at the whiteboards and whatnot that helps you remember what you need to do in order to create a proper monster.
And these icons on the poster, these are
so-called elements. So in order to create a monster, you need to create a mutagen, and every mutagen has at least 4 different elements.
Yeah.
Depending on what the mutagen has, the monster is going to have different types of properties. It might be more resistant, or it might be more terrifying. Being terrifying is actually important. I mean, we are mad scientists, we need to take care of our reputation. So, terrifying monsters is actually a very big deal. But we'll get into that in a second. So, the tutorial is going to ask me to bring this mad mixture into a body chamber. So, this is a place where we would create our monsters, and we're going to do just that in a second. As obviously the tutorial is guiding us further on into the game. As you can see, there's more help over here. It's just a copy of the other note. And like I said, I encourage you to look around as you play. Hello.
What is this? Yeah, this is a monster?
It's actually our scientist's old project. From before he decided to turn the dead people into monsters, he was just making regular old monsters. So at some point, the scientist decided that, well, I need a place to throw away unnecessary failed experiments.
So it's here.
This little dude is taking care of this. I mean, he's grown quite a bit, as you can see. He's barely fitting inside of this vault. And yeah, you shouldn't open this. But
just quick questions. So basically, the rule of thumb during the tutorial and the game itself is following the objects marked yellow, right? So they are somehow let you know where you need to go, what you need to do.
Absolutely. So this is by following this, you can always remember what you need to do. These highlights disappear once you finish the tutorial, and obviously if you skip the tutorial, you won't see them at all because they won't be necessary. All right, so we're almost ready to create a monster, but what do you need to create a monster if you're Frankenstein?
Well, I need some ingredients, some mutagens, and yeah, whatever.
Body.
Well, okay.
So let's take care of that, shall we? Now, we bought a few mortuary boxes online. They're very useful, and they allow us to store a few bodies. And there's one. Now, this is kind of interesting, actually. Those of you who were with us at PAX might remember this particular body, because this was the one we were showcasing over there. But fun fact is that the body you see as the first body that spawns in the tutorial is completely random. We ran the same one as we did on PAX.
Yeah, actually, isn't that the same girl that we have behind us, but in a different shape?
Absolutely, that's the same person. All right, so well, let's grab her and let's give her a little makeover, shall we? It's going to make her nice and pretty and ready to rock. So, first of all, now she's in the chamber. I've got the mutagen in the chamber as well, so let's go ahead and close the cover and access the settings. So in here, it's a very straightforward really deal. You have to fill the chamber with mutagen. This is basically a point of no return now, because we can see that we're filling the chamber with mad mixture, so that we remember what we actually used. And if we're ready, and we are because it's the tutorial, so we have to be, we press initialize. And this is going to create our first monster. Or creature, as we call them, because it's actually, creature.
Yes, I was about to somehow try to deliver the news. So these are zombies, monsters, or
We call them creatures.
just creatures? Okay.
That's creatures, essentially. You could consider them zombies if the definition of a zombie is something that used to be dead but refuses to be.
Yeah,
But at the same time, would you call Frankenstein's monster a zombie?
I don't think so. No.
It's kind of a different thing.
Yeah.
It's technology. It's science. It's brilliant. So these are just creatures, I suppose. And I think there's no other way to get around this. So there's one little bit of an important thing to keep in mind. Right now the creature is sedated. I could wake it up. I couldn't wake it up if I'm going to open the lid. Because it's not going to like it if I do. Because they're, not always very obedient if they're in the same room as you are. So for this reason, I'm just going to continue the tutorial as I should be, so the creature is still sedated and it's not going to brutally kill me. Probably for the best. So
We have some important question from the chat. So Desperados, he's asking that he doesn't really understand why we canceled the release before the Halloween if the game is practically done.
well, I'm going to explain this right away. It's because I want to polish it. For instance, as you can see, there have been some areas where actually we haven't seen any issues yet, which is ironic because I'm going to talk about this. But there are a few bugs here and there. and we want to make sure that the game is completely bug-free and that every little feature is working as intended. And like I said, actually there was a little bit at the start, and we're going to see it in a second again. Like, those are small things, like this text over here. We don't want it to be centered because it's harder to read. We want to improve the readability. So this is what we're focused on right now. UI, and second thing, balance. Because right now, we were in a period where the game was too easy. You could beat it without really thinking all that much. Maybe not on hardcore, but on normal as well. And while we don't want this game to be too challenging, we do want there to be some level of difficulty on normal. So right now we first bump the difficulty spike, and if instead we upheld the initial release date, which was today by the way, you would see what you have right now on the screen and you would be able to play it. And I know some of you are really eagerly waiting for this, and I understand and I'm very happy to hear this. But we want you to get a polished product as players.
That's one thing, and the other is that we also did add some new features lately, right? And we will briefly talk about it later during the stream, right?
Yeah, so there are new features added, and you are going to see them because well, they are ready. But again, you are going to see that the newer feature is, the less pretty it looks, and again, that's why we decided to change the release, push back the release date by a few weeks, because it just made sense. We don't want to release a game that you're going to complain about because some of the UI options are maybe not the best, or because there are some bugs we weren't able to find and fix it.
Sure, yeah.
Alright, and I believe in the modern world where a lot of games are either pushed back or released unready, I'd rather have a game that is a little bit more polished as a player. So that's kind of why we did it as the developers too. Alright, so next is a cool feature of this game, and that's the whole planning and executing portion. And this is where we have our secret computer. Looks like a simple desk, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I guess it's not.
It definitely isn't. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy open and ready and turn on the computer. So, like I mentioned at the start of the live stream, it's all well and good to create those sort of monsters, but you need resources to make them, and you get those resources by sending the monsters into the city.
And this is a city's tactical map, right?
It is, and we're just talking about things that aren't that we want to make better for the release. This shouldn't be like this. No progress. So, like I said, even though the game is kind of ready, there are those little issues like with this bar overlapping with the button that we're making better. So again, this is our commitment to making this game perfectly playable on day one. But thank you for asking. So, in here we can see a little bit of a summary of what is in this particular district. Because it's the tutorial, we are forced to pick this particular district. And on this district, there are a few military forces that are guarding it. I mean, right now it's less military and more police. There are 4 police units and 1 unit of anti-terrorists. As you go along in the game, and as the military unlocks more breakthroughs in their investigation more than later, you're going to start seeing some more heavy-duty opposition, ending with tanks. Tanks are terrifying, so you have to be ready for this when they come. But that's not gonna happen in the tutorial, so we don't have to worry about it just yet. Right now, we only have a few battalions of police. Just police form battalions? I don't think that's how it's called.
It's more like military style, I would say, but
yeah.
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's more like, I think they just call it a unit. I don't know. To figure out later, however. But they're not ready for what's to come. And what we're going to do in this particular district is we are going to go ahead and grab some more equipment, because this is something that if you don't play the tutorial, you'll be able to do later. But essentially this is going to make the whole process of creating new mixtures much faster. So, first of all, let's go ahead and choose the monsters we want to send to perform this mission. As you can see, we started with 1, and we also have the one we just created. So we have 2 monsters at the ready. As you can see, they have slightly different stats. The new monster has a little bit more vitality, that's life, essentially. The reason for that is simple. They were created with different mutagens. So this monster clearly has some sort of element that boosts its health.
So if we add some different elixir mutagen, the stats will be different for the same monster.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. One thing to note that is once you create a monster, you cannot change the base stats. You lock in with those. You can enhance the monster to improve them temporarily, but when you create a new monster from a fresh body, you have to really think hard about which kind of mutagen you want to use. So if you want to create a really good monster, it's probably for the best if you use the best mutagen you have.
Okay, and just the very basic question: why do we send monsters into the city?
Well, to obtain different kind of resources. So in this instance, we're going to gain more equipment that will appear in our lab and let us work faster and more efficiently. But even though these options are grayed out because we're in the tutorial, you are going to later see how they are available. But as you can see, there are a few other options. We can acquire more bodies. Obviously, in order to create monsters, we need more bodies. You can spread panic, and panic is important. I'm kind of skipping this whole subject because it's a big subject we're going to get to. But in essence, panic lets us delay the military's response and buys us more time. Because the military is always on our tail, kind of like if you guys played XCOM 2, great game by the way. It's kind of the same thing as the Avatar project, really. As we do things around on the city map, the military is going to get more clues about us, and eventually they'll find us. We don't want them to find us, at least not until we create the ultimate mutagen.
But if they do, then what happens if they do find us?
They are going to shoot us on the side.
Okay. That's what happened.
Yeah. So, as for other missions, we can acquire more substances. These are basic ingredients. We use them to create elixirs and mutagens, but each ingredient only has a single element. And like I mentioned earlier, in order to create the most basic of monsters, you need at least a mutagen which has 4 elements. Yeah. You can also fight the military, and that's a cool option. It lets you actually conquer districts around the map. And this basically makes this district controlled by you, which lets you really suck out a lot of resources from it at the same time. Obviously, the military,
resources that you can later use for other whatever you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, this would unlock the special action of acquire substances and bodies. Usually, you cannot do both, but if you conquer a district, you will be able to do this in that particular district. Obviously, the military will, after a while, try to retake the district and do so unless you prevent it. Yeah. There are also 2 backup options.
So you need to stay tuned all the time, right?
Yeah.
And keep the touch with what's happening on in the city.
Obviously, you are the modern Frankenstein. It's not your goal to conquer the city as long as you do science. So you don't have to worry if you lose or even if you never conquer any districts. If you can make it work, if you can have enough resources to continue your scientific work, it's fine.
It's okay. Yeah.
But usually it's probably for the best to conquer at least a little bit to have more of a breathing room, because conquering the districts lets you get a lot more resources faster, and like I said, you are on the clock. There are also 2 backup options where you can not send any monsters and just you yourself can go acquire bodies and substances, but it's risky. You can get arrested. If you get arrested, one of 2 things happens. Either you're released after a while because of lack of evidence. That's usually what happens if the investigation is low.
Right.
If the investigation is high, that will just be the game over. So it's a risky option, and it's just something you can do if you run into really bad problems. We wouldn't recommend it unless absolutely necessary. For now, we're just going to gather equipment. The degree of danger bar is not updated, by the way. Again, another thing we're fixing before the release. Let's start the mission. And as you enter into a particular mission, we actually are going to get... Wait, there is a message in the chat that you didn't get an answer. Can you hear us properly?
Yeah. Because we did answer you.
Yeah. Alright, well, one of our colleagues is going to confirm if you can hear the live stream properly or not, because like I said, the reason we pushed back the release date is because we want to polish the game and make sure that aesthetically and visually all the UI is properly placed. and that the balance is also in the right spot so that the game is neither too hard nor too easy.
Desperados, so if you could confirm that you received your answer now, just let us know on the chat, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so what we see right now is basically a visualization of combat, because we see the monsters to gather some equipment, and those monsters encounter the military. It's not always guaranteed, so the military might find out what you're doing and might try to stop you, or they might completely miss you, and then you won't have this combat. But in this instance, the combat is happening, and we are going to have to fight.
And this is something that was not present in the demo, right? This is something we added lately.
Yeah, this is something that was added after PAX a few months back. So basically, it's a way of seeing how the fight turns out, and it basically lets you see actually what happened, which monster was the one that carried the fight, or which monster was the one that maybe was underperforming. You cannot control those monsters during the fight. It's mostly a visualization for you. You can skip it if you don't want to watch it, but just something for you to really see how it all performs. And again, we're going to polish it a little bit, add a few more sound effects, so don't worry if you feel like there could be some more action happening on the screen. But essentially, our monsters are going to absolutely wipe the floor with the military while taking basically no damage. And we're playing the version before we buffed the military, because when you play the game, it's going to take a little bit more life than the damage we took right now. Also, again, if we're talking about the things that we're improving, this text is a little bit too small. Again, that's one of the things that we're polishing before release, so that it's more readable, because as you can see, we do have open space. We're just scaling it up, trying a few different things to make it as good as possible. But the important thing is, we finished the mission, and it was a success. We destroyed all the military, our monsters survived, and we got our new piece of equipment. And that's the most important thing of all. As you can see, the investigation did go a little bit forward, because the military was able to figure out whether there are monsters in the city. So right now they just started the investigation. This bar is going to fill up 5 times. That's why we have 5 stages over here.
Okay.
So once it
And so what happens on each stage?
So once we reach the stage 2, different types of enemies are going to start patrolling the streets. So first of all, we're going to see tactical units around the city. Then we're going to see mechanized infantry, tanks later on. I believe tanks only start appearing around 4 in small number, and in stage 5 when it's really
So the
bad.
further we go, the heavier cavalry arrives, right?
Exactly. And in individual district, we will also have more units guarding it. One more thing I should probably clarify. Right now, this was a very early game type of fight, so we had all of our troops and the enemy's troops in a single lane. But you may have noticed that there were actually 3 lanes for each side. That's because there are different types of properties for the enemy and for the monsters. So essentially, you can have monsters that will be the first to go into the fight. They will take the brunt of the damage, but there will be a good bullet sponge for your maybe more vulnerable monsters.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and the same goes for the military. For instance, the military has tanks that only go as the last thing they deploy, but it also has the most range, so they'll start firing right away, but it will take a long time for your monsters to actually reach the tanks. So there's a bit of tactics involved. Maybe when we see the screen again, I'm going to explain this in a bit more detail.
Okay.
Right now, the game wants us to check the substance encyclopedia, so let's do that right away.
Which is kind of important, right? Because
Absolutely.
it helps us, somehow, I don't know, gather all the information right now.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the key things is that even though you are a genius, a brilliant scientist, you can't remember everything, right? There are too many things to keep track of. So that's why we have the encyclopedia, and it keeps track of everything you have discovered and analyzed until a certain point in time. So for instance, as you can see in here, we have the mad mixture. And
So the first one,
yeah, the first one we created. Then we have a bit of information. We can write a note that this is a cool thing, yo. And we can write notes to ourselves. So in the future, if we go back to the screen, we can read the notes and remember maybe how we made it or what we wanted to use it for.
And since the combinations are many, it's probably really useful.
Yes, especially since, and that's a key thing. As you can see over here, these are possible elements listed. So the map mixture might have these elements, but might not.
Okay, so these are possible elements, not just
Exactly.
the elements that...
If we
okay.
played on easy, we would get guarantees.
Okay.
But on normal difficulty, which we are on right now, these are estimates. Some of these are correct, some of these aren't. Now, if I did a little bit more work in analyzing the substance, and we're going to get into that in a moment, I can then set it to what I believe is actually in the substance. So maybe, in fact, I'll tell you a little bit of information. I know because I'm more experienced with the game. So out of these elements, I know that this is certainly present. That's because if you take, I'm going to mark it in fact as present, and this is basically, again, this is for you to remember.
Yeah.
Because now I mark this and I'll check it this later and remember that this element is definitely present in the substance. Okay. So how do I know that this one is definitely present? It's because, 1 second tutorial, it's because if you take a look at this poster, you can see that this substance, this icon right over here, this one, it matches with this. And the important thing is that you need one of these 4 elements to create a monster. You cannot create a monster if you don't have one of those 4. We're calling them activators.
Okay.
And as you can see, this is the only thing that matches those 4 elements. I mean, there are 2 like this, 2 gray ones and 2 white ones. And the only the one that matters is the gray one over here. We don't have any other options, so I know for a fact that this little bit is in the substance.
Okay.
And obviously, as you analyze more things, you're going to learn more about the substances you actually have and figure out things from there. So if you start a new game and skip the tutorial altogether, you're also going to get more entries in your encyclopedia to get you started. You're going to have a bunch of ingredients analyzed, pre-analyzed, with guaranteed elements that they have. So you're going to know for certain that some sort of ingredient, for instance, has this activator or something else. And based on that, you're going to start checking them against other unknowns and figure out what is what. So right now the game wants us to recreate the last mutagen, and we're going to make this pretty simple for us. So, as you can see, we could just mix the same ingredients we had last time. But where's the fun in that? We can just go back into the very basic ingredients that formed the elixirs, that then formed the mutagen, and we can actually now mix it all together because we have this.
What is this? I was about to ask, because this is also pretty new even for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I was used to the alembic in the bag, but
Yeah.
this one is something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. So this is something we actually just acquired on our city mission. We sent our monsters.
So this is the new equipment we acquired. Okay.
Yeah, we sent our
Okay.
monsters to acquire new equipment. This is the equipment we acquired. You can actually upgrade it even further. So if we were to check the city, maybe in a few days, game time, there will be another mission to acquire more equipment, and then we will be able to upgrade this thing so that you can mix even more ingredients at the same time. So the old alembic, it works, it's fine, but it only lets you combine 2 things at the same time. This thing allows you to combine 4 at the same time, which is already more convenient, but it also has one more cool feature. If you upgrade it, so that it has more
So not only you can grab equipment from the city, but you can also upgrade it, right?
yeah, and if you do upgrade it, it has more tanks where you can put your ingredients, and it will actually multiply the effect. It will be more efficient. So while normally if you were to put 4 ingredients in here, it's just going to give me a single mutagen. If I upgrade it,
Okay, I get it.
it's going to give me 2. And if I upgrade it again, it's going to give me 3. So that's a lot of efficiency you're going to need for the late game. So you don't have to
Because
upgrade
as far as I remember, you need 4 ingredients to the
Yeah.
final mutagen. Yeah, okay.
No, not to the final, just to create a monster.
Just to create a monster. Okay.
Yeah. So, like we mentioned at the start of the stream, the ultimate mutagen, your final goal is actually really, really complex. It requires you to create 2 mutagens, each of them having a lot of ingredients, a lot, more so than you would need.
And very specific ingredients, right?
Yes, those cannot be just any ingredients, those have to be very specific ones. They have to be mixed into 2 separate complex mutagens, and then you'll be able to put them together over here, mix them up. You have to set the right temperature, the right mixing speed, the right time to mix them.
Okay, so this sounds like, yeah, only evil genius can handle this.
Yeah, but it's not something that you have to guess. Over the course of the story missions, you're going to get more clues as to what the ultimate mutagen actually has to be and how to create it.
So you're also gathering the hints about what to seek and what to gather, right?
Exactly. So, as we go along, there will be 5 pieces of information. One about the first mutagen we have to create, then about the second mutagen we have to create, then about the temperature of mixing them, then the duration, and then the mixing speed. Once we have all 5, we can create the ultimate mutagen.
That's a lot of things to handle.
That's a lot of things to handle. Even a genius has to work for quite a while before he can create something that lets him brainwash an entire city in one go.
Yeah, I suppose you need to be a bit crazy to finalize this task, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, we're going to create a new mutagen. So normally, creating this mutagen, it would take us many trips with the autolembic. Like, it can only mix 2 things at the same time. So I would have to go bring 2 things into the alembic, mix them, then bring 2 more things, mix them, and then mix the elixirs that those combined things do. Again, so that's a total of 3 trips.
So we're also a walking simulator.
If not for the new equipment, because now I have the final result with a single trip to the storage room. Everything was created in one go. So really, if you're playing the game and you're going to skip the tutorial, do get this bit of machinery as quickly as possible. Maybe you wanna, maybe you have a different idea on how you want to min-max, which is fine, by the way, because maybe you want to use the early days when the military is kind of peaceful to gather more ingredients rather than upgrade your equipment, which is another way of playing the game. But this thing really speeds up the whole process for you. So, we recreated...
What now? What now?
Alright, so now we recreated the mixture. The tutorial wants us to check another encyclopedia, this time a monster encyclopedia. So, I can check one of the mutants we sent on the mission, and I'm not going to pause for the tutorial windows. I'm just going to tell you everything about them really because it's much more convenient. So, this particular monster, we can obviously rename it like we were able to rename our mutagens and other substances. How do we want to name her? Pax?
Okay.
Pax East?
Pax East, alright.
Alright, she's going to be called Pax East because that's when we first
But don't get us wrong, I mean, we really liked this event, so it was really fun.
What are you talking about? I mean, this is a great
She also gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything, Pax East should thank us for naming such, it's such an incredible monster after that. They should pay us, really. Maybe we should contact them.
Yeah, we'll call them right away.
Yeah, we definitely should. So, there's a bunch of information over here. So first of all, we can see exactly what type of limbs this monster has, because we can actually change those limbs around.
And this is real fun part.
Yeah.
For many people who played the game, they were always like, okay,
yeah,
I love recreating limbs and all this stuff.
Yeah, you can customize the monster really to make it into something that you like.
So not only you can improve monster with mutagens, but you can also change their body parts, right?
Yeah. Now this is important. Moreover, you can also see the monster's effectiveness. So right now, this particular monster is actually pretty good at avoiding detection by the military. The more stealth a monster has, the less likely it is to run into the military while performing missions. So maybe I see this and I think to myself, okay, maybe I'll send this monster on missions where I don't want it to be found. Missions where it just has to gather equipment or ingredients and not give it any backup and just rely on its stealth to avoid detection. It's a bit of a risk because if the military were to find this monster, it's probably not the strongest in combat actually.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You can also send a monster to invade the city, but in a stealth way,
Yeah, it's basically...
not just without any, brute force.
Yes, absolutely. So the idea is that unless you choose to fight the military head on, you don't necessarily fight them. It's more of a coin flip, really, depending on the military being able to find you. The more monsters you send into the city at a given time, the more likely it is for the military to spot them. If I send this monster alone, it's unlikely that it will be spotted.
Okay.
Especially since, as you can see, it's quite good at stealth. Okay, it's only halfway to being massive, but it's still decent, as you can see. And it's not easy to reach the end of the bar, by the way. You have to enhance it, change its limbs and everything.
Yeah, I can see the enhancements.
Yeah, it has none right now.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not necessarily the best. As you can see, for instance, there are some, maybe not downsides, but this monster doesn't have any bonuses for spreading panic around the city. It just doesn't have the right elements to do that. It has different elements. It's pretty good at fighting infantry, but it wouldn't be good at really scaring people.
But so later in the game, when you have more monsters, you really need to choose them wisely for each mission, right?
Yeah, it's probably for the best. And you can also figure out the ideal composition. If you want to go gas blazing, you just ignore stealth and send as many monsters as possible.
Yeah.
Or you can just make a small squad of like 2 or 3 monsters that have really high stealth and good substance and bad
So you can combine their skills in a way.
Yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. There's one thing that the tutorial wants us to realize, and it's the fact that our monsters took some damage. Like over here, they took very little damage. Like this one has 116 HP out of 125. It's practically at full health. But it means that it did take some damage. And we're going to heal it up. So, first of all, I'm going to take the mutagen. It's the very same mutagen I used to create this monster at the start of the live stream. I'm going to bring it over to the place where we are keeping our monsters, and I'm going to put it inside of the chamber. And as you can see, it's right over there right now. So
it's like we feed them with the same substance, or
yeah, okay. Exactly. So there are 2 things you need to keep in mind when we are dealing with the monsters. First of all, they lose HP or vitality, as we call it in this game, when they are shot by the military. Well, obviously, we might avoid this entirely if we are just not found by the military, so you don't necessarily have to worry about this if you are stealthy. But there is also efficiency, and efficiency is basically the monsters getting tired after each mission. I know, they're monsters, but they have right to have breaks as well. So if you want to rejuvenate them and make them ready for more encounters, we have to feed them with more mutagen. Basically, fuel them, essentially.
Yeah, refill their energy or whatever, yeah.
If the efficiency goes to 0, you don't lose the monster or anything, you just cannot send it on more missions until you replenish their efficiency.
Okay.
As for vitality, if that goes to 0,
this probably means the end for the monster, right?
Exactly, you never get it back, so you have to keep that in mind. Right, well for now I'm just going to go ahead and nourish the creatures so that it's actually gains its health back, and as you may have been able to see before the tutorial method fogged out, the efficiency and vitality went back up actually, so it's now at full health and strong and ready to fight some more. So, actually I didn't need to end the screen, I can now open the chamber. And I'm going to go ahead and get this monster back out. And the reason why is because now I'm going to showcase the whole limb changing process. It has a few stages. First of all, I'm going to put it in the holder. And I'm going to go ahead and extract its DNA. We need that because every monster has limbs that are custom tailored to a specific monster. So you have to make sure they match. So I'm going to take a DNA sample, and now that the sample is taken, I can head back up into our laboratory. So I'm going to quickly head over there and use our incubator laptop. So this is the place where you can actually check various types of available
And
links.
this is actually funny because this is not a human link, right? I mean, the first one you showed.
No, definitely not. So, for instance,
Hoof, I believe, or something.
yeah, these are hooves. So they make monsters faster. Remember how I mentioned earlier on, if you want to fight the military, you can make monsters that are fast and act like a bullet sponge for the rest of your monsters. To do that, you basically have to change the limbs so that both of your monster's legs have hooves. They make you faster.
They are getting faster. All right.
Yeah, so they reach the enemy first, they'll start dealing damage first, and they'll also soak up the damage for your other monsters. So that's what the hooves could do for you.
What was the second one? I mean, this is crazy. What is it, like frog-like?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this one, for instance, makes your monsters more stealthy and has the opposite effect to the hooves, actually, making monsters slower. But that's actually a good thing, potentially, because if your monster is slower, sure, it will take a while for it to reach the combat. But it means that it's not going to get shot for a while. So you can send in a first wave of fast monsters to occupy the military, and those can be expendable monsters, maybe some things that you don't really care much about. And then you send in the slow, really powerful monsters in the back. This way you ensure that they take no damage or take very little damage.
So there's a lot of puzzling here, right?
Yeah.
That's funny because this is not something that you usually associate with 3D simulator games, but there's tons of puzzling here. I mean,
you can.
And many level of puzzling.
Yeah, you can really approach the tactics and strategy of this game with a lot of depth. You don't have to do this. If you don't like strategy, if you would rather just focus on playing around in your lab, you can do that just fine. Just turn it on easy mode. It's gonna be fine. Like no matter what you do in easy mode, it should be okay for you, really. Now,
so let's show the good people on the other side of the screen. Maybe some hooves or some. I don't know what tutorial requires of us. Does it matter?
Yeah. First of all, we're going to have to make sure that we actually have some sort of mutagen in the chamber. So we're going to
mutagens everywhere.
Yeah, so we're going to use the same mutagen we used to create the monster in the first place. And to do that, I'm just going to put a few of them into the incubator. I'm going to close the lid nice and easy. And I'm going to go ahead and just create the limb that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and start the process. And this is not instantaneous. Now, people might get confused. If you play the demo, artifacts or download it from Steam, you may remember that this process was instantaneous. It is only for the basic limbs that give you no bonuses. In this case, I'm making hooves. As I said, they do make your monsters faster and give you a few other bonuses as well, to vitality, for instance. So they take a while. And right now we have a little blob here. It's basically our limb just growing steadily.
It's disgusting.
What is something that's beautiful? It's beautiful, it's gracious. The way it moves, it really evokes the feeling of gentle ocean waves.
Ocean waves, I can see it, okay. Now that you mentioned.
Yeah, you have to have a wicked mind to see the beauty in things, really. So, it takes a while, and it doesn't take a while in real life, it just takes a while in game time. So, in order to go through with this and see the end result, we're just going to go ahead and skip this day. You don't actually have to do something on the city map. You can just choose to do nothing. This way the military will get very few leads on you. And if you're making some sort of limbs for your creatures and you don't want to do anything on the city, you just want your limbs to be finished, you can just skip the day. And I'll confirm that. As the next day, the investigation bar barely changed at all because we didn't do anything. So we didn't really give any leads to the military. That was the whole idea.
I was about to ask, so if we don't do anything, the bar stays at the same place or it slowly decreases?
It will continue increasing.
It will continue increasing, okay.
Yes, because the military, we started our activity as the mad scientist, and the military will not stop looking for us. If we do nothing, it will progress very slowly, but obviously we need to do things. If you want to slow it down, you spread panic. The more panic there is in the city, the more terrified the citizens are, the better. Because in this way, we're going to ensure that the military gets its progress very, very slowly.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to track a small hideout, I mean, among the chaos, right? So,
Yeah, that's the idea. With riots in the streets, people are not going to notice that you are actually doing anything whatsoever. Right, so I'm going to bring our...
now to the Frankenstein's part.
Yeah, pretty much. So we've got our hoop. Now normally it would be best to make two of them. Because like I said, in order to make it most fast, you actually do need two. But that's not going to have to be necessary in this case. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab our mutant real quick and put it on the table. By the way, I noticed on this stream just a second ago that there were a few hiccups. Don't be surprised by that. First of all, we're streaming right now, and we actually picked probably not the best computer because it's actually the weakest computer in the entire office, and things are more stable in the actual version. We are going to make the optimization a bit better, but we noticed that even on old hardware, 60 FPS is easy to handle, and we are on max settings right now. And this particular PC has 1050 GTX, just to give you some reference in regards to what kind of performance you can get. So it might be choppy here and there, but again, we are live streaming.
Yep.
And this is not the latest and the greatest in terms of hardware either. Like this is 1050 GTX. It's not a bad card, but it's kind of dated now and definitely not top tier. And we are on max settings. I mean, just to show you, it's all on it. So, and this PC is still handling it just fine for the stream. It'd be even better if we didn't stream this, but it's putting a bit of strain on this PC. So that was a bit of side talk about the performance, which you're not going to see on the stream either way, unless there's a bit of lag spike because of us uploading this live. So what I need to do now is replace the legs. Now I can choose to just cut off all the limbs, but I'm not going to do that because I don't have any arms prepared. I'm just going to cut the one leg I created
and replace it with a
different one. Now I don't remember which leg I made. I'm just going to.
I think it was left.
I'm going to cut both of them
Okay.
just to be safe. It's better to cut more of the limbs than less. It's a good lesson in life. If you're studying to be a doctor, remember, cut more and not less. You can always sew it up later, right? Okay, I think this was right indeed. You may have been correct. Alright, I'm just going to replace them really quick. Plop it down over here. Again, nice and easy. And I could mix and match if I had more legs around. I could carry it, I could put it on the ground, trip over it. Again, the bonus of working to dead bodies is that you don't have to worry about hygiene. I mean, why would you? You can't make it any worse, really.
I mean, everything is in blood anyway, so...
Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to reattach the new limbs, or legs in this case. And in a bit...
Here it is.
Here it is, and it now has brand new legs. As you can see, we have to attach them with a bit of metal contraption. Again, very Frankenstein-esque. We really wanted to go for this feeling of, you know, it being mostly biological with a little bit of extra metal here and there. I mean, after all, Frankenstein was depicted with those metal bolts and whatnot.
Yeah.
So let's go.
And what about her hands and arms? What is this?
That's the default for this particular monster.
Okay.
Yeah, but we could in the future change them if you wanted, if you created more limbs. So that's absolutely a possibility. So now we're going to do something else. We're going to enhance this mutant because right now, because of this leg, this mutant is already a bit stronger than usual. Let's make it even stronger.
Let's do this. Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead, and the game is going to want me to tinker with some mutagens. Now, we do have a limited time on this live stream, so I'm not going to think too much and work too hard on what to show. Well, we're streaming for an hour already. Yeah. We still have more things to show, so I'm just going to do what we prepared to make things faster. I'm just going to take what I know is going to give me the best result. The one mutagen we need to create this monster. As you can see, even though we do have this new machine, I can still use the old one just fine. Like, if you want to use the old one, it's up to you. It's just getting more equipment in your lab gives you more options. It doesn't disable the old ones because, I mean, why would it?
You can count more steps if you do this.
Yeah.
if you need to.
If you-
Nordic walk or whatever.
Yeah. And that's a really good achievement idea. Now, unfortunately, we already finished the achievements. We have a set amount of them that we prepared. So you're not gonna get the Nordic Walker achievement unless I ask the programmer
Yeah,
nicely.
I mean, you can do this just afterwards.
We'll think they're gonna hate me if I ask. They're gonna hate me for adding more after the finish.
Oh, they're gonna hate us anyway.
Yeah, I'll ask. This is a very cool idea for Nordic Walking achievement. Alright, so now I'm going to pour some extra mutagen into the holder. So as you can see,
So right now we are improving our monster
Yeah.
mutagen wise, or
yeah, we're basically making it stronger. The thing is, this monster, well, it is already a monster, so whatever we add extra to it is just going to give it a temporary bonus. It won't last long. Depending on what we use, the bonus might last for a single day in most cases. So it only gives you a bonus for one mission. But there are some ways of...
So correct me if I'm wrong. So the limb replacement well, yeah. So limb replacement changes your monster forever, and the mutagen improvement is just temporary, or
Yeah, if you want to enhance a monster, this one is just temporary. Everything else is permanent.
just permanent? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I already put the mutagen in, so I'm not sure why I was going back. I wanted to showcase something, but I guess I forgot what it was exactly. So anyway, now that the mutagen is in here, I'm going to just go ahead and enhance it. And oh, I know what I was going to show. It's that I mentioned that different types of enhancements work differently. Some of them might last for a day, some of them might last longer. And if you read closely, like there are hints around the lab that you can check out. And you definitely should, because they are giving a little bit more information that until you get more experience might be essential. So for instance, if I were to look at this element right here, I'll notice that most enhancements give random bonuses. Well, this is not necessarily helpful because you don't know what to expect if you enhance the monster with this element.
It's pretty enigmatic. Yeah.
It is enigmatic, but it tells you that, well, it's basically kind of like rolling the dice. You might get something cool, you might not, and you just don't know exactly what to expect. Now, however, as for this particular one, as you can see, this one is going to make you, let's see, it's going to...
Resourcefulness, body.
Yeah, resourcefulness, body gathering. So essentially, if you use this element, it's going to let your monsters getting more bugs, or well, test subjects as we call them for the experimentation. And if you make an enhancement of this, it will enhance the effect even further. In most cases, like we do like to keep things a little bit enigmatic on purpose. So if you checked one of our devlogs, and I encourage you, check our devlogs, they're on Steam, and we did write a little bit more about enhancing, and you can check there is a table over there with different combinations of enhancements and elements, showing you how certain elements give you certain things. So
basically, just to look into all of this from the meta perspective, so there are many layers of strategizing the monster and the whole approach you want to have when you invade the city.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this case, depending on what I choose, if I want to enhance lungs, stomach or liver, the mutagen that I poured into this order is going to have a completely different effect.
Okay.
And as we go along, you're going to, just by the process of trial and error, figure those out with a little bit of help of what you can see in the back in the laboratory. But we do want the players to experiment. We want them to figure the things out. And in fact, this is one of the key things for the replayability of this game. Because we do want this game to have a good amount of replayability. So every time we start a new campaign, all of the ingredient names are randomized. So it's not like you remember that from your previous experience.
It won't be really helpful in the... So what you remember from the last session may not be really helpful when you play from the squad.
Exactly. So if you, in one campaign, you discover that the mag mixture makes your monster stronger, faster, and more terrifying. And in another game, the same mixture could have a very different effect.
So, in a way, and correct me if I'm wrong, you need to learn from the beginning each time?
Yeah, you have to make those experiments to make it easier for you as a player. Like I mentioned, you always start the game with a few entries in your mixture encyclopedia. So you always know
Some kind of a kickoff, right?
Yes, you always know a few things from the get-go, and you are guaranteed to know a few basic elements, how to get a few of your basic elements to start.
Okay.
And then by mixing them with the unknowns, you can slowly figure out how things combine and figure out the rest of the ingredients. You always start with some information, and then you get more. So let's go ahead.
We're now enhancing mutant.
Yeah. We're enhancing the mutant.
There's something with this big needle here.
Yeah, it's basically that's how we inject.
Really scary.
Yeah, the mutant isn't afraid.
It's bigger than hair.
Yeah. So in this case, Pax East is now, as you can see, has that went way up. So the stuff didn't change, but she's not terrifying. She's good at gathering more bodies and gathering more substances. She has a lot more vitality. Like previously, she had.
She did change their pose, or
Yeah, they get randomized.
randomized.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to keep you on your toes. So previously she had like 125 or something. Then we started improving her. Now she's at 181. So you can improve your monsters quite a bit in this way, and make them into basically one-man armies. And that's basically the idea. So let's grab this mutant. She's now really powerful, and let's put her back into this chamber. Close it up and continue with the tutorial.
Can you keep improving monsters? Is there any dead point, that you cannot cross and the monster then stays as it is?
Well, there isn't, technically speaking, a hard limit, but there is more practical one. Like if you want to continue improving them, it's going to require more and more resources. At some point, it's just not efficient. You're going to have to use everything you have in your storage room just for a single monster. And then imagine what happens if you send this monster on a mission.
So you may want to spread the stuff you have for many monsters.
Yeah, like imagine we only had this one monster and we buffed her to high heavens, and she's super powerful. And then she goes against a tank, and the tank one-shots her.
Yeah, and you're left with no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could continue improving her, but it's way too risky, really. So now we're going to send our monsters on a different mission, and just to progress with the tutorials. Now, this district has a hospital. Hospitals are wonderful because they're basically like for us, for mad scientists, they're like a market, or maybe
A free market.
yeah, or a shopping mall, really, because everything you can desire, all these ingredients, everything is in one place.
Yeah.
So you want to be on the lookout for a district with a hospital, because if you do send your monsters on a mission with a district with a hospital, in this case, our primary goal is to gather more substances. But because we chose a district with a hospital, by the virtue of there being a hospital, we're going to also gather a few bodies as well, because, just pick them up as we go along. And you can see in this case, there was no fighting, because the military didn't detect our monsters at all.
So we just sneaked into the hospital and
Grab the bodies, grab the ingredients, nobody was there to stop us. Like in the district, there were a few forces, and you can see that now there are more. Like there was one anti-terrorist team in this district, in Sleepy Hills.
So,
and now
this particular section informs you about the thing that happened after you sent your monster to hospital or just to the district.
To that district, exactly. So now
So we had like one anti-terrorist, and right now we have 7 guys.
So this is now way better protected district, because the military saw that there are monsters. They're trying to contain it somehow. And but on the other hand, even though we were trying to gather ingredients, we also gathered a few bodies. Like I said, because it was a hospital, it was essentially a drive-through for our monsters. So just easy pickings. Now I'm going to go ahead and return to the lab real quick, and we're going to try to finish the tutorial soon, because there's a little bit of a side mission mechanic we really want to show you.
Yeah, the new mechanic that we were just announcing some time ago.
Yeah, so normally this is the part where the tutorial will ask you to experiment and teach you about making mutagen from the scratch. For this preview livestream build, we actually cheated a little bit. and we are basically letting us create the same thing we already made in the past by just combining two ingredients. Normally, you go through a little bit more of a process where the game teaches you exactly how you can also figure out how different mixtures work together. Again, using the microscope. If you recall, you can check what elements they may have.
Yeah.
And then if you combine the ingredients together, they also work differently. For instance, as you can see here, these elements on the right side look like the opposites of the elements on the left side. Let's take a closer look. For instance, you can see that this one and this one
Even look like negative.
Yeah. So basically, if I were to try to mix those two together, depending on the difficulty level, they would cancel each other out. So it's...
And what happens then? I mean,
Well, then just imagine you have a mutagen, two mutagens, one with everything on the left side, one with everything on the right side. You mix them together, and you get a sludge that does nothing because everything cancels each other out, the other element out.
Okay.
If we have, for instance, the red element, the yellow element on the left, and the red element on the right, and we mix them together, we'll be end with just the yellow element because the red ones cancel each other out. That's basically the idea, and this actually can be used to your advantage because when you mix the elements together and you notice that something goes missing, then you know, aha, so that means we definitely how those two things interact.
Okay.
That's kind of how you investigate the mixtures. We don't have time to show you this in practice because we've been going for...
But it's a pretty deep system, right?
Yeah. And again, if you don't want to think about it, you can just play on easy. On easy, you know everything. You're a true genius, and every time you analyze a mixture under the microscope, it tells you exactly what it is and exactly what it does. And you don't have to do any brain work whatsoever. You just create your mutants, send them into the city to get more ingredients, rinse, repeat, and so on and so forth. If you do like the puzzle element, then you play on normal. If you're a masochist, then you play on the hardcore, because on hardcore, things get even more crazy, because those two elements, they don't just cancel each other out. They will ruin the entire mutagen if they're ever mixed together. So it's a lot more risky on hardcore. So guys, if you just buy this game and play it, don't be too cocky, start on normal. Personal recommendation. Hardcore is for people who actually beat the game at least once. That's the idea.
I would say there are, many factors here that you need to somehow comprehend and acquire the knowledge about. So yeah, we recommend starting on a not necessarily the easy mode, but at least the medium one.
Yeah, the medium is probably the desired version that we're going for. So we have different types of...
Oh, another gas.
Yeah, let's get some more. Yeah. So let's get a few more because we are told to create a mutant, a new creature right now. So let's go ahead and put this clown over here. I'm not.
He
being
already looks like a vampire.
Yeah, I'm not being mean by the way. He really is a clown. So let's go ahead and initialize another monster, and now we're going to have 3 of them, and that's basically the beginning of an army. Really, with this we will be able to really wreak some havoc and fight against a lot of the military.
Oh,
yeah.
what happened here?
I mean, the skull is really an inconvenience when you're conducting science, wouldn't you agree? So, in this case, it seemed like it was a weak point for this monster, so yeah, the skull is unnecessary. It's just a bit of a thing that we got rid of as we made a perfection.
Whoa, time to think big.
Yeah.
I thought we were already there.
Oh no, we're thinking bigger because, again, just to reiterate what we've been saying, our goal is to create the ultimate mutagen. We want the entire city to be brainwashed and bow down to our greatness. And we do so by, well, creating the ultimate mutagen. Now, the game wants us to head on over to our computer and actually start a brand new mission where we actually acquire more research documents, and these are what you need to create the ultimate mutagen. You have to complete 5 missions like this in order to create mixture that will let you win the game.
Okay.
We won't do that.
Yep.
Because our time is almost out, and we have to show you something that has only recently been added, and something that we actually are really stoked about.
Yeah.
And that is the whole side mission mechanic. So as all this is happening, and you create your different monsters, send it to the city, and work to create, gather more ingredients and figure out the research documents that you need for the ultimate mutagen and everything. As the story missions happen and they lead you through, and again, just to remind the people who are watching the stream, we turn off the story missions for the clarity of the tutorial. But as you do all this, you can also do other things. You don't have to, but you can accept side quests, and we call this system the Dark Web.
And this is a system that we also added recently, and it also affected a bit the release date, right?
Yeah, because as you're going to see right now, this is a little bit rough around the edges. Like, it doesn't look as good as we would like it to, and we expected this to happen. That's why we gave ourselves a bit more time to polish it out. But
yeah, so this is the real preview version.
Yeah. Functionally, it's there, it works as intended, it just doesn't look the best right now, but in the coming weeks, we already have a version, internal version that looks better, but because it's a live stream, we don't want to risk anything breaking, so we're not showcasing that, we're showcasing a bit that is a little bit older.
What's more, we plan more streams, probably closer to the release date, so we will definitely show it to you in a final form.
Yeah, so right now, this might look a little confusing because this is a version we're using to test this mechanic, so there's a bit of developer information. So these numbers are the ones that are at the top of the screen. That's not something that we plan to keep in the game. It's for us to test if everything is working correctly, if it's displaying and whatnot. And basically what is happening here is that we have a message board. We have messages from different types of contractors, really. And we can go ahead.
So the icons on the left, they somehow describe who is the contractor?
Yeah.
Or...
In this version right now, we only have enabled a specific group of basically other mad scientists and science institutes. And they have specific needs. They care about limbs that we create, and they care about mutagens we create. They don't care about our monsters, really. They don't need that. They just want things for experiments. There are other groups of contractees, such as, for instance, the government that really is interested in our monsters, or the terrorists who are also interested in monsters.
So it's working with, I don't know, let's say military somehow affect the situation on the map?
It is in different ways. So essentially, as you accept different types of jobs, you're going to have to work to create an order, to finish an order. In this case, they ask for a specific set of things. Again, not the final way this looks. We're working on making this clear and making it look more pretty, but essentially we have a few things that we need to create for this contractor, and once we do, we're going to send it, and they're going to give us a few rewards for it.
So we can create, like, I don't know, limbs and not use it to apply it to monsters, but send it to contractor, right?
Yeah, in this case, this contractor wants two arms and 3 creatures that have this particular leg, those particular set number of vitalities, so they have to be quite resistant and so on. So once we do that, we're not going to do that. We're out of time and we're polishing this either way. But once we do everything, that's when we are awarded either bodies, ingredients, or, which is the most interesting part, tokens. Right? So tokens are basically, they function like cards which you can stockpile to use in an emergency. So for instance, if we go back to the map, we can see that the military has some investigation. And I mentioned earlier that you cannot make it lower. I lied. That's a lie. There's one way. Okay. There's one way. That is to use a token. So for instance, if I go ahead and go for destroy evidence, this is a token that you get if you cooperate with shady corporations. Those really kind of money hungry corporations that can make some evidence of your actions disappear.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, huge corporations and burning evidence.
Yeah. So if I use this token really anywhere, and you take a look at the map, suddenly we're back to square one. The military has no idea who we are or where we are. Obviously, for this token, it would probably be better to use it when there's a lot of investigation and we want to fix the situation. Right now, there's a bit of an
We're just at the beginning of the road. Okay,
that was a bit of an overkill. And obviously, you also don't start with every single token unlocked. We did it for the live stream specifically, just to show it off. Normally, you have to finish an order for one of your contractors, and then they reward you with tokens. And depending on the contractor, you get different tokens. So, for instance, let's have a quick look at something. Let's take a quick look at Fort Will.
Okay.
Alright, so Fort Will, it has this amount of population. Population is actually important because the more population there is in a district, the more bodies and resources we can acquire from the district. So we actually do want the people in that district to be numerous. So if we work on a government contract, we can get migration policies.
Okay.
And then we can, what district was it? And then we can, oops, I went back to the lab, my bad. And then we can use it Fort Will. All right. Use this token on Fort Will. So let me just go ahead and use the migration policies over here. And once it's done, I go back to the map and you can see that now it has the same amount of population because it's actually the max. So that was a waste on my part.
I would say that even remotely reminds me of, I don't know, Frostpunk social system when you just, there were decrets more than just tokens, but some smaller stuff that can affect the whole situation, the whole political situation on the map.
Yeah. So essentially you can do other things. You can first move the military out of a certain district. So this is something you would get if you made a government contract. If, for instance, you decided to work for the terrorists, first of all, if you work for the terrorists, surprise, you will never get a government contract again. Because they don't like it when you work for the terrorists, and vice versa. But if you work for the terrorists, maybe you will instead get a widespread bombing card, which is going to destroy all military units in a district. And unfortunately, this also lowers the local population as a side effect. And if I worked for somebody else, I could grab intimidation campaign, which will actually raise the panic. And like I explained early on, the more panic there is, the slower the investigation is. So there's a lot to show and a lot to do. Yeah. Additionally, when we are in the game itself, you can also, normally the game you will also have enabled this sort of UI element where it shows you how many available jobs are in the dark web to accept.
Okay.
What is your currently pinned job? What you need to do for your currently pinned job. So right now I can quickly check, okay, I need to do, for the one I have pinned, 3 mixtures, 3 limbs, things like that. So,
so just to summarize, how would you describe the whole loop of the game? So first
So the whole loop, the core of the game is to create the ultimate mutagen. In order
this is the meta loop, right?
Yeah. So in order to create the ultimate mutagen, you go through the story missions, which start when you watch TV for the first time, and you go get more missions which have specific goals that you have to complete. As you complete them, you get more bits of trivia around the lab, maybe some innocuous things. Maybe there's a pizza box that appears somewhere, or maybe there's a bit of FBI file or something that is actually more relevant. But to go back, you have to create the ultimate mutagen, and you do this by completing the main story missions that appear on the map in specified districts. As you complete in order to complete the main story missions, you're going to need the monsters that will do the missions for you.
Yeah.
So you create the monsters in your laboratory, which we showcased in this stream already. In order to create the monsters, you need to have bodies, and you need to have a lot of mixtures. And you can gather those mixtures by sending your monsters into the city.
So this is just a never-ending circle in a way until you get the final mutagen,
Until
right?
you reach the end of the story missions, exactly. So you send your monsters into the city to get more ingredients and bodies, to create more monsters, to prepare for the story missions. You complete the story missions, which usually also give you some sort of rewards in their own right, and you slowly go forward. And if you want, In the background of all this, you can do the dark web assignments.
Yeah.
These are completely optional. If you, for instance, find yourself with a lot of extra resources, a lot of monsters you don't need, a lot of limbs you don't need, or mutagens, you can just take a dark web contract and you get some tokens. And those tokens are going to be really helpful to you near the end of the game.
So it's all connected, right?
Yeah.
Each and every part of gameplay just holds together.
Yeah,
Okay.
my personal recommendation is to, once you get your bearings and maybe finish like a few story missions 1st, my recommendation is to then take a few dark web contracts to start amassing those tokens and keep those tokens for the late game. Because when you reach the end game and there are tanks rolling on the streets, you're gonna wish you had those tokens that let you blow them up.
Yeah.
Because at some point, let's just put it into perspective, like you can possibly, by spending a lot of resources, make monsters that have like maybe up to 200-ish HP, vitality, as we call it.
But I can imagine tank can
Tanks.
seriously damage it, right?
Yeah, so the default monster has 100 vitality. A tank can deal 150 points of damage with a single shot.
Okay, all clear.
Yeah, so you're gonna need to save those tokens. I mean, you don't need. You can. You can ignore the dark web completely if you want to, and just do the story missions, and you can still win. Make good monsters, sneak around the tanks, or make tank busters, because there are limbs that are especially suited for breaking through tanks. Like, make a slow monster with a tank buster arm that looks like an axe. It will destroy this tank, as long as you buy enough time for it to reach the tank.
The longer you describe the game, I have this feeling that this is exactly what we polish now, right? That the balance between all these aspects here.
Yeah, so going back to what we mentioned earlier on, right now we're feature complete. The last thing that are left for us to do is, first of all, visual touch-up. As you saw, there are some things in the UI that maybe could look a little bit better. And the second thing we want to focus on is balancing, making sure that the game is neither too hard nor too easy. And that's pretty much it. We've been recording for 1.5 hours already.
Yeah, just to sum it up and remind you, the game is planned to be released in November. So yeah, we're still hoping to deliver this date, make everything run smoothly.
Exactly.
Thank you, Piotr. I didn't know that you're such a good streamer. I know that you're a designer, producer, VP of our company, but I didn't know that you're a streaming type. So, okay, thank you guys. I mean, we will post Discord address in a moment on the chat.
So if you are looking for a Discord channel, look no further than at any of our scientist logs. On our Steam page, on the Future Lab Steam page, there is a whole section of news.
Yeah.
Aside from news like the news about this live stream, which is over there, there are also things called scientist logs. Every scientist log has a link to our Discord.
Yep.
You can click on it, join our Discord, and literally chat with us. We're there, we're reading the messages. We don't always reply instantly, especially now that we're working hard on the game.
Exactly.
But we're trying to reply as soon as we have the time, so we're really making this work.
Also, I myself, I'm checking Steam boards as well, so you guys just shoot us if you have any questions. We're open to talk. We hope you like the chat, not the chat, but the stream. So yeah, and there will be more. There will be more, and we'll let you know. The sooner the release date, you will see and hear us more.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see more devlogs, or as we call them, scientist logs, about, for instance, the dark web mechanics, so you can learn more about it, and about other aspects of the gameplay that we showcased on the live stream, because not all of us want to watch long live streams, so we're going to write more about this. We're going to make a new trailer, everything you need to get properly hyped up for this game. And listen, if you like what you saw, do us a favor, will you? Tell your friends.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Because
really
we assume that you may already wishlist the game or whatever, so yeah, just spread the word, okay? It would really help us a lot. I mean, we're an indie development studio, as many other in Poland and in the world, so I mean, without you guys, we can do games and we can sell games, so your help is always appreciated. So thank you for being with us, and see you next time.
Yes, see you. Thank you for watching. we'll see you online.
Yep. Bye, guys.